These 7 warning signs after 70 mean it's time for a checkup. As we age, it's normal to face some health changes. But knowing when something's off can be tricky, especially after the age of 70. So how do you know if that minor discomfort is just part of growing older or if it's time to get checked out by a doctor? Well, there are certain warning signs that you should never ignore. Let's break them down and talk about why they might mean it's time for a checkup. First off, let's talk about weight changes. Have you noticed that your weight has been fluctuating lately without any clear reason? Maybe you've been shedding pounds, even though you're eating your usual meals, or perhaps you've put on weight out of nowhere. If you found yourself in either of these situations, don't just brush it off. This is something that deserves a little more attention. I mean, how often do we think about weight changes until it's too late, right? Let me tell you a story. A woman in her early 70s, let's call her Susan, started to notice her clothes fitting looser and her energy levels dropping. She didn't think much of it at first. After all, she'd been eating the same foods for years. But after a few weeks, her weight had dropped significantly, and she couldn't understand why. Despite eating a decent amount of food, the pounds just kept falling off. Well, it turned out that Susan had developed an overactive thyroid, which can cause weight loss like that. It's crazy, isn't it? And it's not always as simple as a change in diet or lifestyle. There are several underlying health issues that can cause unexplainable weight loss. But weight gain can also be sneaky. Imagine this: swelling in your feet or ankles, and your weight creeping up without any changes to your diet. That could point to a few different things, some of them a bit more serious than a new favorite snack. It could be something as common as fluid retention or a thyroid imbalance, but if it's coupled with swelling, it could also be a sign of heart failure or even cancer. Sounds dramatic, but it's true. The American Heart Association even warns that rapid weight changes, whether it's a sudden drop or gain, could signal serious health conditions like diabetes, heart disease, or even depression. Your body is trying to tell you something, it's just a matter of listening carefully. So if you've noticed some odd weight changes, especially ones that seem to have no explanation, it's time to have a chat with your healthcare provider. Don't wait around thinking it'll just fix itself. It's always better to be proactive, don't you think? Catching things early could make all the difference in your health journey. Better safe than sorry, after all. Let's talk about something that everyone experiences, but when it becomes a little too constant, it's time to pay attention: fatigue. Now, don't get me wrong, we all have those days when we're just tired after a crazy week or a stressful month. But if you find yourself feeling exhausted all the time, even after a good night's sleep, that's a whole different ballgame. Imagine waking up and already feeling like you need a nap before you even start your day. Sound familiar? It can be a sign of something that needs a little more attention. Take, for example, John. He's in his early 70s, enjoys a walk every morning, and was always the life of the party. But over the past few months, he started noticing that it was getting harder to get through the day. He felt tired, even after a full night's sleep, and simple tasks like going to the store or even standing up for long periods left him winded. At first, he brushed it off. It's just getting older, he thought. But after a few weeks of this constant fatigue, he finally decided to check in with his doctor. Turns out, John was dealing with sleep apnea, a condition where your breathing is interrupted during sleep, leaving you tired during the day, no matter how much rest you get. But fatigue doesn't always come from sleep problems. It can also be a warning sign of something more serious, like anemia or heart disease. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, highlight that people over 70 need to be especially mindful of heart disease. As we age, the heart has to work harder, and conditions like heart failure or clogged arteries become more common. If you're constantly feeling out of breath or like you can't keep up with everyday activities, it's crucial to take these signs seriously. And hey, don't feel bad for reaching out to your doctor. Better to ask and be safe than to let it slide. They're there to help you, after all. It's easy to think that fatigue is just part of getting older, but if it's sticking around and making daily life harder, don't ignore it. It could be your body sending a message that something's off. the key is not to wait too long. A checkup can make sure everything's in good shape and help you avoid any surprises down the road. So, if you're constantly feeling drained and it's not getting better with rest, it's time to have that conversation with your healthcare provider. Trust me, it's better to get it checked now than to wish you had later. Let's talk about breathlessness. We all get a little winded from time to time, right? A steep staircase, a brisk walk through the store, or even just running after a grandkid. But what if that shortness of breath becomes a regular thing? You know, when you're getting winded from activities that used to be no big deal? That's when it's time to stop and take a closer look at what's going on. Picture this: Susan, a 72-year-old grandmother, used to take daily walks with her dog around the neighborhood, no problem at all. But lately, she's been feeling out of breath just from walking to the mailbox. At first, she thought it was just part of getting older. But after a few weeks, her breathing problems seemed to get worse, and she found herself exhausted from the simplest activities. This wasn't just getting older, there was something more at play. You see, when breathing becomes harder than usual, it could signal a few different conditions, some of which are more serious than others. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, lung infections, or even heart problems can cause breathlessness. And guess what? Studies show that by the age of 70, about 30% of older adults experience some level of COPD, particularly if they have a history of smoking. This condition gradually makes it harder to breathe, and it often goes unnoticed until it becomes a bigger issue. It's like your lungs start working overtime just to get the oxygen your body needs. COPD isn't something you want to just wait out, it's a condition that can worsen over time if not treated. Then, there are lung infections like pneumonia or bronchitis that can cause similar symptoms. Sometimes these infections don't show up with obvious fever or other symptoms, so it's easy to brush them off as something minor. But if you're struggling to catch your breath, even after resting or using your inhaler, it's worth looking into. And don't forget about the heart. Heart conditions, like heart failure or coronary artery disease, can also cause shortness of breath, especially when you're exerting yourself, even a little. So, if you've noticed difficulty breathing or if you're feeling unusually tired after basic movements, it's a good idea to consult your doctor. Don't just chalk it up to getting older. The good news is that if you catch it early, many of these conditions can be managed or treated. So, if you find yourself more winded than usual, don't ignore it, take a step toward better health and talk to your healthcare provider. Your lungs and your heart will thank you for it. Let's talk about something that's all too familiar as we age: pain. It's totally normal to feel a little ache or discomfort here and there, right? You bend down to tie your shoes and feel that twinge in your back, or you wake up with stiff joints. But here's the thing: while some pain is just part of getting older, severe or ongoing pain is a different story. And trust me, you don't want to ignore it. Let me share a story to illustrate this. Take Tom, for example. He's a 73-year-old who loves gardening and spending time outside. But for the last few months, he'd been dealing with a nagging pain in his knee. At first, he thought it was just from too many hours spent weeding the garden. But when the pain didn't go away and started getting worse, Tom realized it might be something more than just a sore joint. He made an appointment with his doctor, and it turned out that he had arthritis, which was causing the pain in his knee. But here's the kicker: had he ignored it for too long, it could have turned into something much worse. Now, joint pain, like what Tom experienced, is common as we age, especially for those dealing with arthritis. But here's the thing: if the pain is persistent and doesn't improve with rest or typical treatments, it's time to take it seriously. And pain that comes on suddenly, like a sharp pain in your chest or stomach, should never be brushed off. This could be a sign of something far more serious, like heart problems, ulcers, or even a heart attack. Think about it: chest pain is not something you want to gamble with. According to the National Institute on Aging, unexplained, severe pain, especially in areas like the chest, abdomen, or back, should always be investigated by a doctor. These could be warning signs of major issues like heart disease or digestive problems. And here's the thing: if pain is persistent, severe, or keeps getting worse over time, it's time to take action. Waiting for it to go away on its own can be risky, especially when it comes to issues that involve your heart or digestive system. So, if you're dealing with pain that doesn't feel right or is lingering longer than it should, don't just sit back and hope it'll pass. Reach out to your healthcare provider and get it checked out. A simple checkup could save you from more serious health problems down the road. And remember, your health is too important to ignore the signs your body is sending you. Let's talk about something that's a little too easy to overlook: changes in your vision. We all know the feeling of squinting at a menu or holding a book a little farther away than usual, but what if that blurry vision becomes a constant companion? I want you to think about someone like Mary, a lively woman in her 70s who's always enjoyed reading, knitting, and driving around town. But over the past few months, she started noticing that her vision just isn't as sharp as it used to be. She chalked it up to the usual aging process, telling herself it was nothing to worry about. But then, it became harder to read her favorite novels, and driving at night started to feel a little dangerous with headlights blinding her. One evening, she realized that her world was becoming more and more out of focus, and that's when she decided it was time to get it checked out. Changes in vision can be a normal part of aging, but some of those changes shouldn't be ignored. Things like blurry vision or difficulty seeing at night can actually be a sign of underlying issues like cataracts, macular degeneration, or even diabetes. Let me give you a quick rundown. Cataracts are one of the most common vision problems for older adults. They happen when the lens in your eye becomes cloudy, causing blurry vision. It's something that many people experience as they age, but the good news is, it can be treated with surgery. Then there's macular degeneration, which affects the central part of your vision, making it hard to see details. This condition can be especially troubling because it can interfere with daily tasks like reading, cooking, and even recognizing faces. And let's not forget diabetes. It's not just about blood sugar, it can also affect your eyes. Diabetic retinopathy is a condition that can lead to vision loss if left untreated. According to the National Eye Institute, nearly 40% of people over the age of 75 experience some form of vision problem, whether it's cataracts, macular degeneration, or something else. That's a big number, right? And as much as we might think these changes are just part of getting older, they can really affect your quality of life. Imagine not being able to read the newspaper, see your grandkids clearly, or drive safely. Those little daily moments can quickly become frustrating if your vision isn't what it used to be. So, if you've been finding it harder to read, drive, or just see things clearly, don't wait too long to schedule an eye checkup. Getting your eyes examined regularly can catch potential problems early, and often, they can be treated or managed more effectively if detected early on. It's better to take care of it now than to let those blurry moments turn into bigger issues down the road. After all, your eyes are the windows to the world, and you deserve to keep them in top shape. Now, let's talk about something that can be a little tricky to navigate: memory issues. As we get older, a little forgetfulness here and there is pretty much a given, right? I mean, how many times have you walked into a room and completely forgotten why you went there? Or maybe you've searched your bag for your keys only to realize they were in your pocket the whole time. Totally normal, right? But here's where it gets important: there's a difference between this kind of everyday forgetfulness and something more serious. Let me share a story about Bob, a man in his early 70s, who had always been sharp as a tack. He'd tell jokes, remember the names of everyone at family gatherings, and never missed a birthday. But over time, Bob started to forget simple things. At first, it wasn't anything too alarming. He'd misplace his phone, or he'd forget where he parked the car. But as the months went on, he realized that he was forgetting more important things, like his own birthday or the names of family members he had known for years. It wasn't just small stuff anymore. This is when things start to feel a little different. Memory loss can happen for all sorts of reasons, but when it starts affecting your daily life or your ability to recognize familiar faces and places, it could be something more serious, like dementia. For example, forgetting where you put your glasses or the name of someone you just met. That's totally common. But if you're forgetting important dates, like your anniversary or your own birthday, or if you're finding it difficult to recognize loved ones, that's when you need to pay extra attention. You see, the Alzheimer's Association reports that about 1 in 10 people over the age of 70 will experience some form of dementia. And it doesn't always start with a drastic change, it's often gradual, sneaking up on you like a slow leak in a tire that you don't notice until it's too late. If you've noticed a sharp decline in your memory, or if it's getting harder to remember things that were once second nature, it's probably a good idea to get a memory screening. It's better to catch things early, right? Early detection can help manage the symptoms and even slow the progression of the condition. So, don't brush it off as just aging. If your memory isn't as sharp as it used to be, talk to your doctor about getting tested. Trust me, it's never too early to get a little peace of mind. And remember, you deserve to be as sharp as possible for all the wonderful things ahead. Let's chat about something that often gets brushed aside, but is just as important as physical health: changes in mood. Now, it's completely normal to feel a little down or irritable here and there, especially with the ups and downs of life. You know, those days when nothing seems to go right, or maybe you're feeling more anxious than usual. But here's the thing, if you're noticing that these feelings are becoming more frequent or more intense, or if you're finding it harder to enjoy the things you used to love, it might be time to pay attention. Take for example the story of Sarah, a woman in her early 70s. She had always been an upbeat, social person who loved spending time with her family and going on long walks. But over the last year, she noticed something was off. She was feeling sad, even when there didn't seem to be a clear reason for it. Her energy was low, and she didn't enjoy things like she used to. What used to be an enjoyable walk around the neighborhood now felt like a chore, and she found herself withdrawing from her family. At first, she thought it was just part of getting older, but it didn't get better, it got worse. If you're starting to feel a similar way, it's important to recognize that depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions aren't just for younger people. They can show up at any age, and in fact, they can often get worse as we age. The National Institute of Mental Health reports that about 1 in 5 older adults will experience depression, and that number jumps even higher for those dealing with chronic health conditions like diabetes, heart disease, or arthritis. It's tough, right? Physical health issues can sometimes make mental health even harder to manage. So, if you're feeling persistently sad, anxious, or irritable, it's time to take it seriously. Now, you might be wondering, why would I feel this way? Well, life changes play a big role. Retirement, the loss of a loved one, or even the simple shift of getting older can have an emotional impact. And let's face it, life doesn't always slow down when you get older. Those major life changes can leave you feeling overwhelmed or alone. But here's the good news, if you're feeling like this, you're not alone, and there's help available. Talking to a doctor about how you're feeling is a great place to start. You don't have to carry that weight alone. A professional can guide you towards strategies to manage your mental health, whether it's therapy, medication, or lifestyle changes. So, if you're noticing a shift in your mood, don't wait for it to get worse. A simple conversation with your healthcare provider could help you get back on track. Your mental well-being matters, and getting help is a strong and important step in feeling better. Let's talk about something that might not always be at the forefront of our minds: persistent or recurring infections. Now, we all deal with the occasional cold or sniffle, but if you're finding that infections are becoming more frequent or lasting longer, it might be time to take a closer look. Here's the thing. As we age, our immune system doesn't quite work like it used to. In fact, our body's defense system can slow down, leaving us more vulnerable to infections. Take for example the story of Linda, a woman in her mid-70s who had always been in great health. But over the past year, she noticed something odd. She kept getting urinary tract infections, UTIs. At first, she didn't think much of it. UTIs happen, right? But when they kept coming back, she started to worry. It wasn't just the discomfort of frequent bathroom trips or the burning sensation, it was the confusion and fatigue that seemed to follow each infection. Something wasn't right. You see, UTIs are much more common in older adults, particularly women. They can cause symptoms like pain while urinating, a strong urge to go, or even lower back pain. But what makes it more complicated as we age is that UTIs can cause confusion and even affect our mental state. Imagine feeling off balance or not quite yourself. Linda found that during these infections, she had trouble concentrating and her thoughts felt foggy. That's because a UTI, particularly in older adults, can lead to what's called delirium, which can make you feel disoriented or even forgetful. It's pretty alarming, isn't it? But the thing is, UTIs aren't the only infection to watch for. Pneumonia, for example, is another condition that can sneak up on older adults and be a bit harder to detect. Sometimes the symptoms are so subtle, like a low-grade fever or mild cough, that they're easy to overlook, but they can quickly become serious if left untreated. So, if you're noticing symptoms that won't go away, like a persistent fever, pain when urinating, or even changes in your ability to think clearly, don't just ignore it. As uncomfortable as it might be, you should see your doctor right away. It's better to get checked out sooner rather than risk letting a minor issue turn into something more serious. The truth is, infections can sometimes be a sign of a bigger health problem, and catching them early could make all the difference in your recovery. So, take it from Linda, when infections become a regular part of your life, it's time to make that doctor's appointment. Your health deserves it. So, there you have it. If you're over 70, these 7 signs, unexplained weight changes, persistent fatigue, breathlessness, unexplained pain, vision issues, memory problems, and mood changes, are all good reasons to schedule a checkup with your doctor. Don't wait for things to get worse. The earlier you spot these warning signs, the quicker you can take action and get the treatment you need. Trust me, your future self will thank you. In fact, one recent study by the American Geriatric Society found that seniors who get regular checkups are more likely to live longer, healthier lives. So why not be proactive? It's not just about treating diseases when they arise, but about preventing them in the first place. After all, health is wealth, right? And making sure you're on top of your health after 70 isn't just important for you, it's also important for your family and loved ones. Remember, aging doesn't have to mean feeling lousy all the time. With regular checkups, staying aware of these warning signs, and taking action when necessary, you can keep your body and mind in top shape for years to come. Stay informed, stay active, and most importantly, take care of yourself.